Welcome back. So the World Health Organization says COVID is no longer a global health emergency, but getting back to life as we knew it before 2020 may not be easy given the physical and psychological trauma endured over the past 3 years. With us this morning is doctor and clinical psychologist Kati Kamkar. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for having me. So, Kati, a survey by the Center for Addiction and Mental Health paints a picture of how the pandemic affected us. 25% of people reported increased anxiety, 25% reported binge drinking, 24% reported feeling lonely, and 22% experienced depression. So with those numbers in mind, how are we seeing the impact of the pandemic as we now transition back to a semblance of normalcy?
Yes, absolutely, and thank you very much for covering that important topic. While we are hearing that the pandemic might be over, certainly we have seen that the mental health impact continue to linger. We have seen how the pandemic has had significant impact on us psychologically and emotionally with a range of behavioral responses, including grief. When we are talking about grief is complex, it's multifaceted, it's multidimensional. We are talking here about loss of loved ones, loss of employment, loss of finances, and a variety of dimensions when it comes to grief, the emotional dimension, the cognitive dimension, the physical, social, and the spiritual dimensions of grief. So the mental health impact continue to linger.
And you know, it's interesting. Early in the pandemic, mental health experts were warning of the risk of what they call collective trauma. That's when a group is affected by a shared traumatic experience. So from your perspective, is there evidence of collective trauma from the pandemic?
We know that the pandemic has impacted everyone differently, so we always want to appreciate the individual differences. But when we talk here about collective trauma, it refers, so very much as you mentioned, is to the psychological and the emotional impact that is experienced by a group of people who have shared a traumatic event or a series of traumatic events. So it could be natural disasters or war, and of course, in this case, the pandemic. But collective trauma here can have a profound impact on individuals, on communities, on societies, and of course lead to a range of psychological and emotional and behavioral responses. So here, as we just talked about, a range of emotions, anxiety and the fear and depression, social isolation, feelings of loneliness that we increasingly hear, including fatigue, exhaustion, and burnout, and of course grief. But collective trauma can also lead to a loss of what we call a sense of self at times, but then also sense of security, sense of safety, and the trust as well. But we also know that collective trauma can lead to resilience, to growth, and positive social changes.
It's really interesting. And obviously, you know, for folks who are suffering, getting help is key. So how did the pandemic change the way that people access mental health services?
Well, prior to the pandemic, we did have access to what we call telemedicine and video therapy, video sessions. There was not much knowledge in regards to that. Certainly, throughout the pandemic, we have seen that it has exponential by thousands and thousands %, and it has been positive. So we have also data showing the impact on the telemedicine here, for example, and video sessions. People do not have to be worried in terms of commute, the transportation, about parking or being late, the costs related to the commute, and it has also helped to build access to further resources and to care in that, let's say, therapist doesn't have necessarily to be within the same city or the region, and of course, ideally within the same province, however, but it has helped to build access to care and resources in that regard.
All right, really important issues to discuss. Thanks so much for joining us, Kati. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.